Good morning, attendees. Welcome to the Fujitsu and Fortinet SIEM event. So during this session, you'll learn about a SIEM, benefits of a SIEM, and Fujitsu's offering among a managed SIEM. During this session, expert that will be presenting to you, Adonis from Fortinet, who has years of experience in terms of security and SOC. And also we have Andrew from Fujitsu and Brandon, who have years of experience around security and also around SIEM solutions. Just some basic housekeeping rules. You'll be on mute during the presentation. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we'll address it at the end of the session during our Q&A. And also during the session, at the end of each presenter's presentation, we'll pose a question for a raffle. And the raffle, and also for attendees that are also attending the session, we're presenting some bags for you. In terms of collection of the bags, we'll organize through Fujitsu on how you can get them collected. So over to Adonis now. And I hope you enjoy the presentation and look forward to having some one-on-one discussions with you between Fujitsu and Fortinet. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Aveen, for that introduction. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the, once again, to the Fortinet and Fujitsu presentation regarding SOC and SIEM. My name is, as Aveen had just stated, my name is Adonis Sardinas. I am a system engineer here with LATAM. I've been working in the IT field just to establish some credentials. I've been working in IT and cybersecurity space for a little over 20 years. I hold a bachelor's in business in information technology, master's in business administration. My prior life to Fortinet was actually leading a cybersecurity center at a predominant managed security center here in Miami. I've also done cyber consulting. I acted from a capacity from a virtual CISO, and usually the term comes out, I was a hacker at some point, if you ask my friends, which is a pen tester, right? So the word, you say pen tester, nobody knows what that is, so pen tester. And I do hold the following credentials as well: CISSP, CNDA, and CEH. So for my deck of slides, we're going to go over why SIEM, why do you need one? And I'm sure most of you at some point I've heard this term before, why FortiSIEM, and then in a transition to hand it off to Fujitsu, why manage FortiSIEM. So why is SIEM? Because, how bad can it be, right? That's usually the question I get. Well, why do I need a SIEM, Adonis? As we can all probably agree to, the attackers have not gone to sleep. They are more active than ever. They are more deviant than ever. If we can go back and roll back time to when we started with Windows 98, I remember when I was confronted with a system attacked with the Melissa virus, back in Windows 98, when students hacking was basically bring up the command prompt and do net message and send a message to all the computers on the network, right? And I'm probably dating myself. And then moving till now, or even more recent, right? When the true spike happened with Stuxnet and also CryptoLocker, where now attackers were getting more sophisticated. They saw the opportunity for money. Bitcoin was around actually. So in my time, when I was in the Windows 98 days, I was mining Bitcoin way back then. I didn't, man, the fool was I that didn't invest more money in it or equipment. But then CryptoLocker started happening, and now hackers are realized with the growth of the internet, the acceleration and possibility to transfer funds to each other, the communication on the forums online, now we're no longer IRC, though IRC when I started was very popular for the hacking community and so on. So we're not seeing a reduction in attacks, quite the opposite. And then leaving it off with how COVID has affected all this, right? So hackers are now leveraging more the social engineering standpoint of it, right? It's not just a phishing attack to an organization. It's now they're leveraging concerns, right? The social part of our human fears, and they're picking on that in order to get into networks, right? So it just doesn't sleep, right? If you're in the cyberspace, I feel for you. We don't get any rest, and we need to, you know, if you all agree with me, we have to do something to get ahead of the ball here, right? And so that kind of, you know, a SIM is one way, one avenue that can identify all that. Breaches are a matter of when, not if. Well, everyone at some point is going to get attacked to some level, right? Either very lightly, they're going to compromise some user password, they're going to compromise a user. We all pray and we hope that our organization doesn't get affected by some type of ransomware, but it's something's going to happen. The question is, are you ready? Do you have the visibility? Will you see it coming? Can you see it as it's happening? And are you ready for it? Have you prepared for it? Is going to be the question, right? The equivalent to, hey, hurricane's coming. There's news set up to tell you that a hurricane's coming. You know how to prepare for it. You get water. You tell your kids what to do. You tell your family what to do. You put a plan together. The same thing needs to be reflected on the cybersecurity space. So here are some statistics. It takes an average of 280 days to identify and contain a data breach. This is true. Why? Because there is a lack of preparation. Really, is the result of this, not having the right people at the right positions, not having the right technologies. Some of us have shelfware, and based on the healthcare industry, so I'm going to take the healthcare industry as an example here in 2020. The average cost of a breach for healthcare is 3.86 million. Now, let me break it down. So my background in cybersecurity, I'm going to break it down how this works, because a lot of people ask me, Adonis, how do you come up to that number? You right now, so get a piece of paper and a pen, right? Let's do the math together. Put your industry up at the top: banking, financial, healthcare. Then let's go and kind of, how do I come up with a number of records? So put up next line 2 would be number of records in your organization. So if you're in the financial institutions, how many records do you have? Client and employees, right? So clients, employees. Then the second step is, okay, well, now I get breached, and those 2,000 employees, that 2,000 list of users is out on the web. What type of information is on there? What do I have to do? So my legal fees, so, you know, put a random number, legal fees, right? It can be a sum. It doesn't have to be the number of users. Legal fees, let's do marketing, take an estimate on reputational cost, take a guess on downtime. You know, you could put in the thousands, so maybe let's say legal fees in the 200,000s, a reputational cost negative, you know, another, you know, 50,000, and so on and so on. So the math, and then you do the division, you sum that value up, divided by the number of records, and now you have the cost to you as an organization, right? And so that's how the number, so these numbers are based off of that, right? And then downtime, right? You get hit by ransomware, take the number of staff, multiply that by the salaries per day that you pull out per day. That is your cost of downtime, right? So this is a very serious thing, you know, and going through the numbers is when you start to realize the potential damage of this. So the landscape is evolving. It's not just a guy using some Linux tool online. There are more advanced services. So here you are. So if you're looking at this, if you're seeing the presentation now, on the left here we have the victims, which are us. What do hackers want? Well, if you're in the banking industry, they want some bank account numbers. If you're not in the financial industry, you have personal identifying information, PII, so that's social security or some type of ID. You have credentials, you have data. Yeah, believe it or not, credentials are profitable. Why? Because hackers are going to use that in a list, right? When they got, if a breach happens, let's say link, so the you know, I don't know, pick a predominant social media platform. Passwords are stolen in a hash. Not a big deal, right? We think so. This is why we tell our users, make your passwords long. It's not about complexity anymore. It's about length, because we have GPUs, we have ASIC processing. They're gonna, you know, an 8-character password that gets cracked like that using just random characters versus a, you know, 12, 14, 20 character password, which is a phrase. It doesn't have to have question marks or anything. That takes a little bit longer. And then last but not, and so credentials are popular because now I have a list, a database that I can hit against a hash, a list of hashes. And then last but not least, you have here digital real estate. Now this one's really cool and interesting because this just happened recently. This was a little bit more recent, and I actually saw this about about 3 years back in one of my incident response, where because of a phishing attack, I was able to get the credentials of an O365 user. What does all 365 users have? So now I got John's username and password to his valid organization, whatever that is, bank.com. And now I have access to his SharePoint. Well, SharePoint is not going to get blocked by a firewall because SharePoint is safe. If I can embed, now I can leverage this digital real estate. This can be a website, this can be SharePoint, right? Because we didn't put 2FA. Hey, as an organization, we decided that 2FA was an inconvenience for folks. Well, guess what? 2FA it's good. It should be a standard because if I get credentials, I can log into a user's account. Now I'm in, and now I have access to put malicious malware in SharePoint, share that in order to get past a firewall, a anti-spam filter, because SharePoint is not a bad destination. It's a good destination. It's a business destination. You guys are starting to see where I come with this, right? Then you have a less, more sophisticated attack. If I'm going to attack a website, which I've seen as well, I'll take a website and actually embed malware in the backend. And you see this a lot with WordPress websites and so on. And now with me saying this, you're starting to realize that I have no visibility in that. Adonis, how can I get visibility in that? And that's where a SOC, the SIMs come in, or the log, or a central log repository. A SIM is going to correlate that data. So a SIM would have seen that type of attack, failed login, failed login, failed login, successful login from Russia. This is an alert, right? That's what a SIM, and it will create an incident in the SIM. Then it would identify, that's where an incident response process goes into play to say, hey, we have somebody who's trying to get into our digital real estate or just attack the user. We're going to go into incident response. That's on the victim side. So if on the cyber criminal, why did I leave this for last? Well, from a cyber perspective, all these tools, these technologies to enable me to successfully attack my victim are out in the wild, guys. They're all out there. The database, we got Pastebin, we got Shodan, we got Kali Linux, we have a GitHub. It's all out there. And then there are companies that make a profit off of developing these tools, right? So if we look on the crime producers, we have the exploit developers. If we look at the service enablers, if you notice pick an IP, go to your firewall right after this call, go to your firewall and pick a random IP from China, Russia. More cases, more likely than not, that is some type of shell or remote desktop service that they're selling off to a hacker, because a hacker is not going to go from his IP address. He's going to pivot off another box, right? So something to take into consideration. Why a SIM? Why do I need a SIM? Well, because of visibility. You don't know what you don't know. So let's go over some metrics here, right? And how am I doing at time? Okay, I'm doing pretty good. Do we accept the risk? So the question we ask ourselves, okay, I know all this, you know what? I'm still not convinced that I need a SIM, or I need better visibility. I'm okay with what I have. Well, do you accept the risk? Do you accept this information that's up here, right? So Shodan gave me some data on total services on the web. Wow, and they kind of, oh, I see the numbers here, right? So, we put 1, 2, 3, so these are actually countries in your region, by the way. And so if we see here, if you see your country code here, this is the percent of IPA to vulnerable, right? So affected IPs by country. So total services on the web, 81,000. Out of those, country, let's say 10, 849 are affected by some type of vulnerability. What I'm saying is here, all these services are on the web, either by a valid response or by an invalid reason. They're out there, and out of those, you're talking about 2,000 in your region that you're sitting in right now are vulnerable to some type of attack. Do we accept that risk? Do we all? And so these are the vulnerabilities, right? I'm not going to go too much into this, but these are the vulnerability by count. So if we look here, we still have OpenSSL open. We're still using SSL as a cipher to protect when we know it can be compromised in a man-in-the-middle attack. We know that best practice tells us not to use it. We still have unpatched Exchange servers, even though we know that the FBI recently, so if those of you on the news, if you didn't read it recently, the FBI got a warrant, a judge warrant to reverse the reverse shells that the hackers have been implanting in the states exchange servers, on-prem exchange server, because us as individual organizations are not being more proactive to patch. You know, and I hate to see it, you know, even though the number is low, we still have SMB publicly available. So from a hacker standpoint, you're just giving me, this information basically, hey, come here and hack me, right? Exchange is a perfect one, right? It's not a problem on an organization. So, you know, organizations are going to have vulnerabilities. It just happens. Why? Because you have developers that develop an application. They do the best that they can to develop it with security best practices in mind, right? So there is the OWASP and other best practices. But guess what? Hackers wake up. You know, I'm in a Fortinet shirt. I wake up, I get dressed, I go to work. Hackers don't do that. Hackers have their community. Hackers go in their PJs, and that's all they have to do. They're just researching ways to, okay, how can I inject it? How can I get into this? Can I try you know, what other research can I do to break into that system? That is their job. That's what they do. You know, you have the gray hats that actually submit it to the vendors, and the ones that the black hats that actually exploit it. So something to consider, right? To end off on the cyberspace, in this, another apologies. So that's my phone ringing up. Another thing to take into consideration is this is data from a organization called Gray Noise, and basically the IPs for the region that you folks are watching me from. Out of that region, there are 15 source IP addresses that are scanning the web proactively, right? So Gray Noise has a bunch of sensors globally. So this means that an IP from that region is intentionally port scanning the web. And then the red numbers, so 4, 1, and 2, not too bad for the region, but we're talking about 6 IP addresses or 6 sources that are actively exploiting some type of vulnerability, right? So here we have the list: SSH brute forcer, they're actively doing this MSS SQL brute forcer, and then Mirai, right? So they're part of the Mirai botnet. Still not convinced, right? And by the way, if you have any questions or feedback, I would like to hear them. Please post your feedback on here. If any of this is concerning to you, or you know, give me your put it in the question and answers. We'll love to answer them and feedback on it, right? I like having the dialogue with regards to cybersecurity, because as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. If the vulnerabilities don't do it for you from a SIEM perspective, you know, hey, okay, I patch, I'm cool. I don't need that type of visibility. Regulations and compliance should, right? So it's in the States, we're very pushed, as an example, right? I'm going to use the States. I'm going to always refer to the States or European country as an example for where SIEM is actually pushed because of regulations. If you're in an industry that's not being forced to have a SIEM by a regulation, there's a reason why they do this, because of the lack of visibility, and the SIEM gives you visibility. Here are some examples, right? So I'm just going to hit on PCI DSS. It says that you need and I was actually a QSA in my past life, so I used to do PCI audits. You need a SIEM if you're if I remember correctly, if you're a level 1 merchant. If you're level 4 merchant. So if you're level 4, you have to have a valid QSA to do the audit for you. It says that you need a SIEM, and for the PCI environment specifically. They don't care if you do it for anything else. They just want the PCI environment. If you're following any type of best practices, such as NIST is very common. If you need GDPR, you know, that you need the visibility, because how do you respond, right? GDPR says that within 72 hours you have to respond to the clients. If not, you get fined. How are you responding if you don't know where they came from or what's been affected, right? This is where a SIEM plays into play. And then last but not least, ISO 2700 is another very common framework that, you know, if you follow it like you should, then you know, you should have some type of SIEM and some type of team looking at those events. So all great and dandy. By now you're probably sold. I should consider some type of SIEM or some central logging, because logs are important for visibility, and I have none, right? I've acknowledged either that I have, and what can I do to improve it. Now that I have this knowledge, like, let me go back and actually check if it's actually functioning the way that it is, if I'm capturing the right logs. And then secondly, if I don't have one, now I'm considering having one, right? So why FortiSIEM? from a FortiSIEM standpoint, this is actually a product in my past life that I stood up. I came from SIM X into, I won't give out the names, but not to drop every new, but it was the SIM platform we had was a very hectic one to use. It needed a lot of development, right? So it wasn't a bad platform. It was a great platform, but it just needs a lot of resources and headcounts in order to do it, because it's all about user friendliness and what type of advanced things you want to do with it. But for the FortiSIEM side, they did a really good job at making it as powerful as possible and easy as possible. And some of the key features of it are asset discoveries, which we'll go over in the presentation. I got a few minutes left. Asset discovery, it's rapid, it's scalable, rapid integration. So you feed it a log, it will automatically ingest the logs for you. And if you accept it, if you tell it in the SIEM to accept it, that it's one you want to monitor, it will automatically ingest the data and correlate the data against all the other logs coming in. What correlation means is I got logs from A, B, C, and D. I'm going to take the 5 tuple, which is source, destination, IP, port, and protocol. So source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, and protocol. That's the 5 tuple. And I'm going to take that information, I'm going to correlate it against all the other logs to find a match, right? Hacker moved from A to B into my network, and he's doing this type of lateral movement. That's where the correlation comes into play. Third, you have automated workflow. So you have incident response, case management built right into the system. You don't need another system to do this. You have a single pane of glass, all right? You're getting kind of the picture here. It does knock and SOC, so it's not, as a SIEM, it's not just doing security events, it's actually doing network monitoring, change management, which are also very critical and should be part of your day-to-day operations. It is a unified platform, so if you have multi-tenancy or have a requirement for multi-tenancy, it does a really good job at that, so you can actually split. And from an MSSP, so a managed services department, as I was in my past life, it was very good to segment customers and even sub-segment customers if they had different locations and they had some type of requirement to be sub-segmented. And then last but not least, what makes any SIEM a SIEM solution is the type of intelligence that you bring in. Without intelligence, it's just a SIEM doing alerts based on rules, and you're just having your guys work double to find out if an IP. So if an attacker comes in and the attacker doesn't know who this is, hey, it's Russia. It could be, I don't know, it could be one of my CEOs, executives flying over to Russia is logging in, or is it malicious? How do I check? Without intelligence. Hackers have intelligence, they have their networks, they have these databases of IPs. Why don't we leverage that? And so FortiGuard is actually our intelligence team in they're in California, Canada, and in Europe. How does FortiSIEM from an incident response standpoint, so this is another key here, is that if we follow the cycle here, so a normal SOC process or a normal incident response investigation and response cycle is detect, analyze, respond, and recover. Built in, all of this is built into the FortiSIEM, and I'll just go really high level on it. But from a detect perspective, there is custom dashboards and rules already built into the SIEM. It's very flexible as far as incident notifications, how you want to notify, how you want to react. Then you have the analysis part. So as an alert comes in, it gets detected by the FortiSIEM, it becomes an incident, it gets alerted to the SOC team, to your SOC team. It's GUI-driven analytics. It brings in CMDB contextual data, and what the CMDB is the database of all the devices. So it lets you do it. Not only does it let you investigate the security event that came in, but it also lets you investigate and bring in the data. So enrich your search on analytics. So this was the benefit to me and my team, was from a performance standpoint. So was there a performance impact? Did that box get rebooted? Which is going to indicate to me. So if attack successful or login successful, box rebooted, that means somebody is attempting to establish exploitation, right? So if you follow the kill chain, or you if you follow the MITRE attack framework, or the Lockheed Martin kill chain framework, that's usually a tendency for trying to get a foothold on a product, right? You have to reboot it and survive a reboot in order to be considered, exploited and command and control, right? So that's why that data is kind of important. And then you have response. So hey, I detected, I'm analyzing. Now I need to respond as a team. I acknowledge that this is a true positive incident or a false positive, and then I just, I do my paperwork and I say it's a false positive. I adjust my firewall accordingly, or it's a true positive. Now I need to respond. Is usually you follow. So there is a playbook inside the FortiSIEM. So whenever you have an incident, inside the incident, there is a playbook that's listed out, and you can actually, we customized it per customer. As an example, you customize it per your organization. Go, who do I need to alert now based on the incident, right? And there, most customers now are ingesting or inputting follow GDPR process. I need this stat, right? This is a 911 thing. We need to act stat because we're going to get fined by GDPR. And then what teams to involve, right? Legal, marketing, PR, those types of other teams, and maybe contact the executive and let them know that this is going on. And then last but not least is the recover, right? So this is a full cycle. The recovery. Postmortem, you identify, okay, so what did we do wrong? What did we do right? Because we're going to fail, but you want to fail hard and you want to fail fast, right? So we help this by providing flexible reporting. So you can build a report. There's a bunch of custom reports that are come inside, and you can actually build bundle reports for different business units. And then you can data export into PDF or CSV if you want to leverage it for, the way we were using it was for tabletop exercises, right? As an example. Just so you get a feel, so as I'm getting to the closing of my slide deck to hand it off, just some notes. So from how the FortiSIEM aligns with the NIST, these are some of the security controls for those of you that follow NIST. I'm not going to go into every one, but as you can see from a high level, we do cover, FortiSIEM does allow you to cover a wide range of security controls within the NIST if that is what you're following. And then from a CMDB, so an understanding of what the CMDB and why this is important is that as an organization, not everything has the same priority. PCI environment may have a higher risk and therefore a bigger priority to your organization than the computer that sits in the business unit of the call center, as an example, right? So the FortiSIEM actually from a CMDB business services standpoint can let you put in and identify where everything is. And why this is important is you have to know how to respond and prioritize the alerts, because once you start putting in, if you're a big organization, you have more products inside, more devices that you're monitoring, you want to know what to attack first, what's more critical to the business organization, right? So authentication services, PCI services, everything else follows after, right? Why is this important? Well, from a group perspective, maybe the person in charge of the PCI environment doesn't care about the rest. He just cares about his environment. Therefore, he wants to report about his environment, and this is an easy way to organize it, right? So if you notice here, you have the business units here on the top left, and if you go to the bottom right, you're going to see, hey, there was an availability incident. Something in my authentication service went down. Why? That's going to initiate, that's a critical, that to me, my process tells me that's a critical system. Why did it go down? What was affecting it? I'm going to launch an incident response to that, right? I'm going to follow that cycle that you saw earlier. So last but not least, why manage FortiSIEM? I'm a one-man show. I can do it all on my own. Yeah, I'm sure you could possibly manage it on your own. I'm not disputing that. You got to start somewhere. But where do you want to see? So this is a business decision, obviously. Do you want to sit on the reactive side, or do you want to be more proactive? Now, we all want to be more proactive, but we know that consumes more resources. You need a team, you need the right technology in place, you need the right processes in place, you need processes, period, which a lot of us may overlook. And I have seen this firsthand, right? I'm not knocking anyone, but I've seen it. I've been called in as a consultant. Hey, can you check, do a cybersecurity audit on us? And more times than not, I usually flag the processes. They're outdated. They were established 10 years back. And I go, wait a minute. Doesn't the process, aren't new attacks coming out? Why do you have a cybersecurity plan dated 10 years ago when now we have ransomware? Ransomware didn't exist back then. How do you react to ransomware now? How do you react to website defacing? That's not listed on there, right? So from a SOC maturity, so your SOC, so an in-house SOC or an outsourced SOC is on a reactive side, you're just searching, you got logs in the SIEM, you're just investigating on demand. Hey, look, cool. Let me see if I have time to research this. On level 2, you're more proactive, monitoring and alerting. You have alertings going to the correct teams. You're proactively monitoring, maybe close to real time. Level 3, security situational awareness. You have a full awareness of what's going on in your environment at all time. All right, you know when you're getting attacked, you're making the rule adjustments as you're getting attacked, or you have a change management process. And then last but not least is real-time risk insight. So now you probably have extended into the human factor. What is the human behavior? What are the behaviors of the attacker? And you probably have some type of threat intelligence, threat hunting team that's also gonna acknowledge that, right? It's gonna investigate even further. And so that's a level, really high level. If at any, that is a good question, and I'm going to answer that actually. So somebody posted a great question. I'm going to answer that in directly and maybe share it with everyone. So after the slide. And so what I leave you off is here, you have some next steps. You probably now have a better idea how to do that. And if you have any questions or wish to go further down the SOC maturity, feel free to contact us at Fortinet or Fujitsu at any point. We can have the one-on-one discussions. I'm more than happy to be in the call and give you some feedback, and you can brainstorm with me on cybersecurity. With that, guys, thank you all for your time. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off.
I guess before you, I know we're going to have a raffle right now for a prize.
Yep.
The key thing, guys, is make sure you're able to type into your chat. So the first person that answers correctly and types it into the chat will be rewarded the prize. I know you guys are ready. I'll ask Adonis to ask a question. So he can actually ask the question, and the first person to actually type into the chat will be rewarded the
Sure.
prize.
So if everyone can see their chat windows, I'm going to send a test message to everyone in the chat right now, right? So it's going to be in the chat. So have the response, have already, you know where to type. I'm going to send a test, and just so everybody gets familiar. So my test question is, I'm going to put in the chat and I'm going to speak it, is what does SIEM stand for? And actually I can actually share it as well. So what does SIEM stand for? Put it in the chat. There. All right, so I got one answer. 2. Okay, so now we know. So if anyone had a, all right, perfect. So I got 2 answers, only 2. So out of the 50 something folks in here, okay. Is any, okay, got it. All right, great. So if you notice on my screen, let me see here. Am I sharing? Can you see my, yes, you can see my screen. Okay. So now I'm going to put the second question. So you should see my screen. I'm not going to copy and paste it. I'm just going to read it out loud. I'm going to post it. And I wish I would have had more time to put Kahoot live, but here we go. So I'm going to give you the real question, and the first one to answer will get the prize. All right. So just put it in and they'll contact you. So here in our question and answer, we can actually see the order that it comes in. So be hyper fast. Ready? What comprehensive framework metric, and I gave 3 options here, right? But what comprehensive framework matrix of tactics and techniques is used by SOCs to better classify attacks and assess an organization's risk? Am I gonna get it? Well, you kind of misspelled it. I don't know. Do we give it if it's misspelled? I see somebody put 1, but they ended it with the wrong last letter. Okay, you fixed it real quick. That was quick. Anyone else? So, Aveen, right? I think we can go with the answer that just got in, right?
Yeah, for sure. Who's the winner? Or
It's MITRE attack vector. So you were
okay.
close. NIST is the framework on how to NIST is a framework, but it's not the matrix. So MITRE attack matrix or framework, right? So the SOC community actually uses it a lot from a SOC perspective to better classify attacks, right? It is the MITRE. Yes, you did. So the person who asked, did I win? Yes. I don't
Okay,
want
great.
to butcher the name, Aveen. So can you?
I can't.
It's in the questions. Let me let him know.
Who's the name though? I can't see the name.
Damien, right? Did I get it right? Damien
Voodoo?
Yes.
Mr. Badu, yes. Minor attack
Congratulations,
vector.
Damien.
And here,
Yeah, so the winning
Yeah.
dot Lexi speakers. So we'll organize for you to get it collected from Fujitsu. So thanks for participating and congratulations.
yeah, so just to leave you guys off and hand it off, right? So this is the MITRE attack vector, and what it does is that it lets you, from a cybersecurity perspective, as you're getting attacked, or most vulnerabilities are going to be aligned to this. Why? Because it actually breaks out access, what type of control it takes, what is the exploitation effects, and all that other stuff.
So, Adonis, I guess you'll hand it over to Andrew now.
I think he took it.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Slide is up.
Andrew, yes.
I can confirm, yes.
Great. Well, thanks, Adonis, for answering that question. Why SIEM and how well FortiSIEM plays in that space. My name is Andrew Dixon, Vice President of our Enterprise Cyber and Security team in Fujitsu Caribbean, and I'll be answering the question, why manage SIEM? And most importantly, why Fujitsu is best positioned to be your managed SIEM provider. And let's see if it changed. Now, everybody's on a journey. Not only do we provide threat hunting and incident response, as a company, we have teams who can work with you regardless of where you are in your digital transformation journey via our 4 streams of transformational value. Through co-creation partnerships, we will advise on realizing business agility through IT, modernize your IT to be fit for digital, and transform the way you work. And most importantly, securely manage your digital platforms. Before we go into more details on how we securely manage your platforms, let's have a short background of Fujitsu. Fujitsu is a leading Japanese information and communication technology company with approximately 132,000 employees worldwide. We currently operate in over 100 countries, and we provide managed security services to over 250 customers globally. We have partnerships with some of the world's leading security vendors and organizations, including Fortinet. And the slide is changing on its own speed. And Fujitsu has been in the Caribbean for over 70 years, with offices in Trinidad, Barbados, and Jamaica. We invest heavily in the development of our people, and to show our security teams are not only very certified in our partners' technology, but we also have important industry certifications such as CISSP, CISM, CCSP, and CEH. We provide our SOC services from the 24/7 Tier 3 data center in Trinidad, and we're also accredited with global standards such as SOC 2, ISO 27001, and ITIL. Our Trinidad SOC, providing managed security services, is only one of several, as we have other SOC locations providing new options for your data sovereignty requirements and disaster recovery. Our teams communicate regularly, which enhances the threat intelligence of the local team as you're constantly being updated with trending security events from our other locations. And managed SIEM service is just one of the offerings from our enterprise and cybersecurity team. This wider team consists of consultants, architects, and engineers who are certified and trained to work with you to determine your security posture. Then design and implement solutions for all security controls identified, from your security strategy with governance, frameworks, and policies to technology base covering your data, endpoint, core, perimeter, and cloud assets. So this is very important that the SOC team can leverage the expertise from this wider team that covers the different parts of the security support in your environment. The managed SIEM service is core to our global managed security services portfolio and plays a key role in us providing identity and access management, infrastructure protection service, data protection, threat and vulnerability management as all individual offerings from our managed security suite. As Adonis shared earlier, the FortiSIEM platform does a great job of real-time correlation of logs to flag actionable events. However, as you also pointed out, not all customers, such as the one-man show shop, have staff available each time an event is flagged by the platform, in addition to the expertise to confirm that the event is actually relevant. And if confirmed as actionable, not all customers have the IT teams available to carry out the required action. This is where Fujitsu provides value by managing your security events from our SOC 2 Tier 3 certified data centers via our managed SIEM service. Our managed SIEM service is not one size fits all. Our managed SIEM service takes into consideration your current security maturity and data sovereignty requirements. For customers who prefer to own their own platform and data, we provide the implementation service where we will work with you and your team in sizing, deploying, and tuning your FortiSIEM, and then supporting it once it goes live. For customers who have some teams, some staff, and have the expertise for managing their own security controls, we provide a detect and alert service where our team will focus on weeding out the false positives, finding the needle in the needle stack, as some will say it, and only engaging you and your teams when an event is actionable. And then there are some customers with limited IT staff who needs to focus on more critical projects for the business. We provide a response service where remediations are also handled by our team as part of our response to critical alerts. All three options come with standard deliverables. However, these can be customized based on your scenario and specific requirements. Our managed SIEM service can be provided to customers with their own on-premise platform or to customers who choose to host their logs at the Fujitsu data center. However, that doesn't change the service, as whether your SIEM platform is on your premises or hosted in our data center, we will, in the same way, respond to the alerts as they are reported in real time, perform the triage to validate relevance and decide on escalations. For false positives, the firing rule is tuned and to prevent future occurrences, and for actionable events, we'll either remediate on your behalf or we provide you with the recommended actions to take. And we then track the progress of the remediation activities on an agreed ticketing tool that both of us will have access to. And finally, we provide agreed monthly reports that shows the security events that were actionable and what actions we took for those events. For the customer premise model, the FortiSIEM platform is accessed via a secured VPN tunnel. Trying to get my mouse on the diagram. Via a secure VPN connection, this VPN connection forms a tunnel, a secure tunnel that will facilitate any remote remediation activities required, such as updating configuration or rule base for any security controls that require attention. If we look at the interaction points via this model, just for a moment, our teams get security requests either as alerts from the platform via this secure tunnel or as direct requests from your security team. We will in turn make jointly approved changes to our security controls, to your security controls when needed or as needed as part of remediation efforts. We will then keep your security teams updated with event activity from your environment and meaningful information learned from our global SOC team that is relevant to you and your environment. And here we can see the harmony of the various teams that operate on the Fujitsu side in providing the managed service. The picture is slightly different for the hosted model, with the main difference being that the SIEM platform is actually hosted within our data center and your logs are sent via the secure tunnel to our platform. However, for the hosted model, you have the added benefit for the analysts to now have a single view of not only your logs, but all the logs on our multi-tenant platform so that we can quickly identify emerging trends across all our customer environments. This comes in very handy when we have a zero-day event taking place in real time. So how is something like this priced? We have a very simple pricing model for our service. It has 4 components. The first component being the platform, and that is dependent on how many assets you need us to manage. The storage is based on your retention policies for the logs that we are managing and responding to. The analyst service, based on what activity you anticipate for your environment, and then the professional services for everything else, such as your onboarding, training, tuning, and most importantly, remediation services. Regardless of the 4 components, the final price is always based on your scenario. So we encourage you to reach out so we can discuss your requirements. At this time, I will ask Brandon, who is one of our SOC analysts, to show you how he uses the FortiSIEM platform to perform threat hunting for our customers. After which, I will then go into our question for the Fujitsu prize. Over to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, great. So you guys can see my shared screen right now?
I can confirm.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Idonis. Hi, good morning. I'm Brandon Bozel from the Fujitsu SOC team in Trinidad, and I've been working with the Fortinet SIEM platform for the past few months by tuning the SIEM rule base, monitoring assets to ensure that they're constantly sending data. If this data stops being received by our SIEM, we lose the ability to assess potential threats. I also analyze the captured system of data to ensure that your hosts aren't being affected by malicious actors and performing incident response to security events. It's also my job to be aware of the current threat landscape and how it can affect our clients. I'm hoping at the end of this demo, you'll be very much interested in our security services and partnering with the Fujitsu SOC. So I would like to start with the dashboards. Dashboards are an effective way to visualize the data received from your host. Upon opening the dashboard, we can see a comprehensive, non-technical view of the various events taking place in all our client environments. Here we can see useful information such as the security event and their event severity, incident categories, availability incidents, what are their sources, performance type related incidents. We could also see audit type related events taking place, such as the successful logons that's taking place in your environment, the user which performed that successful logon and the IP that it came from. You could also see failed logins from the host that reported that failed login, as well as the user that reported those logins as well. As a SOC analyst, we are mostly on the incident section, investigating and clearing events. And I will now go into the incident section to show how we progress various security events. So incidents contain detailed information about the rules triggered by the SIEM. When a rule triggers an incident, the SIEM collects information such as the time of the incident, the source, the target, and other information. Incidents contain triggering events, which are the details about why an alert is being reported in the network. And as you can see, there are 4 different incident categories: security, performance, availability, and change. I'm now going to show you how we identify, progress, remediate, and clear security events for our clients. So for this particular event here, we can see when it first occurred, when it last occurred, where the data was exfiltrated to, because this particular incident, the event name is large outbound transfer to outside my country. So I'll just go on the events option here. Under the events tab, we can see and we can get a little bit more information, such as the source and destination ports being used. We will also have to investigate whether it's common for this particular host within a network to be sending out traffic via SMTP traffic. From here, we would we can open a case with the customer requesting to identify whether is this by design in the network, is this a common occurrence? And if it's not a common occurrence, it can be flagged as a incident that needs to be remediated. And from here, we can either stop this host from going out onto the internet via SMTP traffic, or we could even stop this host from going out onto the internet altogether. After we take the remediating action to stop the incident from occurring, I'll mark it as resolved and clear the security incident. So I'm going to go to another incident on a large outbound transfer. From here, I'll pull up the event details, and we can see that this host is sending traffic to Amazon AWS in Germany, and the city name is Frankfurt. We'll also raise a case for this incident and reach out to the relevant administrator. Once they confirm that this is a regular service, we can place an exception on the SIEM rule base by adding the destination IP to the exceptions. Now, the SIEM rules are stored on the resources column. And from here, you could create an exception to allow that destination IP to not trigger another incident. From here, once this action has been taken, I will now clear this event from our SIEM platform. I'll now investigate another incident. So we can see that the target machine in this account locked is a network device. We can see the target machine is a firewall device, and from the event details, login got disabled. I'll open a ticket for the client indicating that admin login is now disabled, and this can cause a potential DOS condition and render the environment unusable, with all accounts used in the brute force being locked out. Remediating steps such as utilizing a VPN to access the firewall or stop the firewall from being accessed externally via SSH or HTTPS. I will also need the responsible firewall administrator contact number, which can be viewed in the CMDB.
So Brandon, question about so just some questions for the audience. Are you, based on the slide deck that was presented, the why a SIEM, are you guys noticing the type of visibility that a SIEM and Brandon? So Brandon is, sitting in the trenches in the SOC, going through all these incidents, and just here's where you realize the type of, skill sets that you need in order to understand and threat hunt when something malicious comes into play, right? Like a Brandon, as you stated, right? That was the failed login attempt. That was that the successful login attempt after X amount of failed, or that was a failed potentially
failed login attempt? Yeah.
Failed login attempts, right? It may, failed login attempt. Yeah. So what's the big deal about that? Could be an attempt, as Brandon was saying, of a brute force attack, right? And then there's another thing. So Brandon is exposing an example of a targeted attack towards one IP, but there's also password spraying. There's other types of attacks, and this is where the MITRE attack vector, the skill sets that you have in a SOC go play hand in hand in order to not only identify, respond, and successfully remediate a potential attack, right? You want to get them before they're knocking on your door. You want to make sure that they can't get in.
So, Donas, quick question though. If I don't have someone watching my network, it can be like days or weeks before I know what's going on, before I get alerted, right? But this kind of correlating all the information to give Brandon that visibility onto my entire environment, right? So he has different ways of different people if they're trying to.
Correct. I'll let Brandon elaborate on it, but as I pointed out at the end of my slide was the maturity, so SOC maturity. In an ideal world, we want to be able to respond immediately to attacks, but that is not always the case, right? As an organization, we have to evaluate what's our risk tolerance, right? But if there's services available, you're not the point is you're not at it alone. But if you know if you want to start off small, that's fine. You're just not gonna be that responsive, the equivalent to a service such as Fujitsu's managed SOC services, where they have the team, they have you're leveraging their economics of scale to respond, right? And help you reduce that risk exposure. But yes, you're absolutely right. It could take days because think about it. You have you're flooded with incidents. How do you have the time to go through each one, and how do you know which one could be a possible threat? Because hackers are just getting better and better every day. And Brandon can probably tell you stories because I remember living in a SOC and seeing some weird stuff, being like, "Wow, that was good." As a cybersecurity professional, when you see a good hack, you're like, wow, that was really good, man. I wish I would have thought about that. Could be making millions living in Turks and
Yes.
Caicos or something, or Aruba, you know, or Trinidad. I would probably move to Trinidad if I was a master hacker and just live off there in the island, man.
Okay, so I'll just continue with my presentation now. So from the CMDB, we can also view who's the responsible administrator for this firewall device. It'll also be displayed their contact number and the business services that this firewall may be tied to, if it's PCI, HIPAA, that kind of thing. And it could be like a high severity, it can be a very critical device in our customers' environment. From there, we also validate the log types that's being received from the firewall. Right now, we could see the method is just syslog. If the firewall was capturing SNMP type data during this particular type of attack, we can also correlate whether if this particular event triggered a CPU spike on the firewall, which could be causing performance issues on the device. Now, after we will contact the system admin, tell them that, hey, we're currently seeing that someone is trying to brute force your device. We need to stop this from happening, and these are our recommendations. From there, after the remediation is performed, I'll just hop back over to our incident, update our cases, and flag it as closed. Now, the SIEM platform is a very powerful tool, and it gives us the ability to generate various security reports happening in all our clients' environments. And this can be done from the resources panel. And as you can see, you could get incident reports, trend hunting, business services, whether your devices, who logged into your devices for a certain time period. And from there, I would just like to show you that this is a sample report that can be automatically scheduled by us to be run either weekly, monthly, daily. It all depends on what you want to see, the visibility that you want from your environment. It can be presented in a report. And I'll say that this is the end of my demo. Thank you for giving me your time to showcase our SIEM platform and how we utilize it to deliver our SOC services. I believe now is the time to partner with Fujitsu SOC, and I look forward to working with you in the near future. And I'll be handing back to Andrew. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. And one takeaway is the day in life of Brandon when faced with a barrage of high priority security events, that some events were very similar in nature. However, the remediation steps that he took for the three that we selected were all different, as we realized. And that's the value that we bring. We have our analysts that are in constant view of the activity taking place in your environment. And because we have contextual information about your environment and we're getting continuous intelligence feed, we are taking these necessary steps and notifying you as we take them. And lastly, as Brandon pointed out, in providing our reports to you on what the activity is for your environment, we can actually utilize the same FortiSIEM tool to generate some of those reports. So great, thanks, Brandon. To end our section before we go into questions, I have one question for you, the audience, and hopefully I'll get some help from the panelists with who gave the fastest answer. And that question is, where are we? What are the 3 service options for the Fujitsu Managed SIEM service? So let me just repeat that in case I didn't get it. What are the 3 service options for the Fujitsu Managed SIEM service?
First one to answer gets a prize.
Well, the first one to answer correctly.
Correctly.
All 3, so they have to answer all 3.
Yep. Oh, I'm getting answers, but not the correct ones.
Can you give any hints, Andrew? Any hint?
Yes.
Can I call a friend?
Yes. So
50-50?
okay. So okay, so I see one with one of the 3. That's correct. We're getting close. Okay, wow. So I'll call out the first one, and that is the support for the implement to implement the SIEM. So now we're down to 2. Options left to provide as an answer.
Stump all the attendees.
And I
Oh,
thought my
dear.
question was hard.
Okay. All right, no problem. So I guess we'll have to call that one, and I'll give another question. So the options for our managed SIEM service is actually implement, detect, and respond. The three options. Let's have another one. This one here is very easy now, because now there are only 2 options. What are the two locations for that the managed SIEM can be provided for? Okay. All right. I think we have an answer. I think we have a correct answer.
Anthony Madison, right? Correct, Andrew?
Yes.
Congratulations to Anthony on winning the EcoDot speakers. We'll organize with Fujitsu for your collection of it.
All right.
And
Great.
all other we'll also be organizing some backpacks for you guys. Whoever attended through Fujitsu will organize some backpacks for collection.
That reminds me
Fujitsu.
of the meme. You win, you get a backpack. You get a backpack. Oprah Winfrey, you get a backpack. So everybody's a winner for just joining.
Exactly. And I guess Andrew, you want to, if they have any Q&A, any questions or?
Right. So at this point, we have finished our sections. We have spoken about the need for SIEM. What is the FortiSIEM platform? What is the Fujitsu Managed SIEM service? And now we're opening the webinar to you attendees to ask any questions that may have come up as we were going through our sections.
Yeah,
you can ask the questions in the Q&A.
Man, Damien's on a roll. Damien wants the backpack and the prize. So here's one question. Does the SIM also detect activity? And by the way, guys, I highly encourage everyone to ask questions. You have cybersecurity experts on here. We're here to answer them. We're not here to, push a service or a product down, on purpose, right? You have an analyst here, you have an experienced a managed service provider, you have an experienced vCISO. I've detected I've done a lot of work with banks, government agencies. I've done a lot of incident response. So ask questions away. This is the opportunity to really say, hey, what do you guys see about this? What best practices we're here to share? So one of the questions was, does the SIM also detect activity on a WAF? So as I stated earlier in my presentation, right, a SIM, what it's going to do is all devices, platforms have logs. Logs usually have represent a certain standard. They're going to have the 5-tuple, right? So the source, destination, IP, port, and protocol. And then you're going to have some type of either user, you're going to have an event status, success or failure. You're going to have some type of information. A SIM's job is to parse through all that information and do what's called a normalization of that data, right? So even though every system sends a log slightly different than the other, far as notification, a SIM's job is to normalize and correlate that data. So the direct answer is yes, it will detect activity. The more complex answer is that it's going to normalize it based on certain criteria that it matches. And in addition to that, from a SIM standpoint, it's going to have some predefined rules, but every organization, this is where the value of Fujitsu comes in, is that every organization and every device is different. Even your region is different. There's certain attacks that affect that WAF, as an example, right, as you were saying, that affects that region versus another. And what you're going to leverage is that because the managed services has multiple clients on it, an attack that affects client A will now be remediated automatically on client C, D, E, and F, because the indicators of compromise for your region, your industry, are going to replicate to the others, right? Indicators of compromise. This doesn't mean that your data is going to be shared. It's just now the team has a better way to alert you instantly. Hey, my threat team found this, and now I have my own threat intelligence. Versus if you take the SIM on your own, you're just going to have threat intelligence to which ones you buy, and then the ones that are internal to you. You won't leverage the whole market, right, as an example. And I hope, Bradley, I hope that answers your question. Damien has another one. How long does it take to tune the SIM? Tuning is an ongoing process. I will let Andrew and Brandon answer from their side, but from my experience, having my own SIM, having my own SOC, and also doing it as a service, the first few months, you have to set some type of cadence for it, a reasonable cadence, right? Is it bi-weekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? As you grow with your SIM or whatever your cybersecurity processes and procedures state is what you're going to go with. Normally, I've seen quarterly, you tune a SIM or you tune your playbooks. This should also apply to your firewalls. Your firewalls as well should be tuned. Not a lot of people do it, but it should. But normally in the beginning, you're probably talking about, or your best practices would stay, depending on your industry, depending on the size of your organization, bi-weekly, monthly, and then you start going quarterly, every half a year, or yearly if you don't have a lot of changes, right? So I hope that answers, Damien, your question about tuning. Let Andrew actually respond. So Andrew, what have you seen is normally the tune? Did I hit it on the spot, or what does it look like for you guys?
Yes and no, because yes. So yes and yes. but I will add. So what we've seen is that as soon as we stand up the SIEM, everything is alert. Everything is actionable, and that's because the SIEM does know what's normal, what's your normal, because everybody has a different normal, and it takes a little while to understand each customer's environment and the cycles that they go through. Some activities only take place once per week, once per month, once per quarter. And until that activity actually occurs, then that anomaly won't be flagged and then marked as normal. So the tuning exercise is heavy at the beginning, at least the first 2 weeks, just to get the activity identified and normalized and accepted. And then there is the touch points afterwards, the end of a month, the end of a quarter, and so on. But the short answer is it is continuous, but it gets lighter as we progress throughout the lifetime. So I hope that answers your question from 2 angles.
Does that answer your question, Damien, from both sides regarding the tuning? So Damien's asking about automation, and I think I will let you. I'll let Andrew and Brandon take that one.
Okay, so for the automations as it relates to the SIEM and what is alerted, if that's the case, then we automate the notification for an event actually occurring, whether by email or some other the automatic creation of a ticket in the ticketing system that we're both using and monitoring. We can automate workflows that will start the process of creating a change order that will result in a remediation step actually being effected on your security device, your firewall, or controls in use in your environment. And then there's also the SOAR, which is a different technology altogether that we can integrate into to add additional automation. So first we have to understand what exactly you want to automate, and then we can look at what are the options for doing so. But ideally, what we utilize in our environment is the automatic generation of tickets and the automatic alerting of the customer and the analyst for critical events. Then that answers your question, Damien.
And Andrew, Anthony Madison has a question around proof of value. So I know,
yes,
I know
oh, is that yes from Damien? Yes for my answer or for the previous one? Oh, okay, great. So for Anthony, yes, of course. That's why we welcome you to come to us with what exactly you're trying to achieve, and we can set up a POC for your environment or for some of the devices in your environment, and then we look at just what exactly it is we can work out. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, I guess Damien also, I don't know if you answered this one, Andrew. Can we automate the isolation of a device if it's under attack?
So yes and no. The isolation of a device is based on the remediation steps that the analyst is taking. If the device is under our control, then we can go ahead and do so. If the device is being compromised and we're seeing active indicators of such, if we don't have access to that device, then we will have to reach out to the administrator for that device to have that done. Yes, and the question is the how is based on what access we have for that device, basically. But the SIEM starts by alerting, bringing our attention to the need to isolate the device. It is the other controls that you have in place that will allow us to do so, whether at the switch or the firewall or whatever. Or sometimes, as we have seen in a ransomware attack, the best isolation is to pull the plug, which involves somebody being dispatched to the site and doing something on our recommendation.
Right. Yeah, and I guess too, Damien, we also work with Fujitsu on some of our other technologies too, like our EDR solution around like ransomware and stuff like that. So I mean, if you want to discuss anything further around that, you can reach out to the Fujitsu team and we could always schedule something around that if required. Around isolation and ransomware and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can add a little color to that, right? So from as far as remediation, automation is not always the best, right? Because there's an intelligence component, right? If you remediate everything, you may miss out on something that how do I put it? You know, there's low-hanging fruit that you can remediate, like failed login attempts, automatically block or execute a change password for that user, right? But there should also be an alert factor to it or a human factor that says, hey, you know what? This user has been remediated so many times, something is wrong with that device, right? So remediation has its pros and cons, right? We want to automate as much as possible, but there's a level of of really fully understanding an attack, because let's face it, there is automated attacks with scripts, and then as AI becomes more prominent, and we start seeing these types of attacks, now you're going to have a level of analytics to it that wasn't there before, right? It's not just, hey, I deploy a ransomware and it does XYZ and it's always going to do the same thing. That's not the case anymore, right? As an attacker, I'm going to be as crafty as possible to break your barriers, right? That is what attackers do. That's what they get. That's what they pay themselves to do.
All right. And I think we have received them all and answered them. So at this point, I will hand over to Aveen for closing.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andrew. Thank you very much for attending the Fujitsu and Fortinet SIEM event. I hope it was beneficial to your organization and you see benefit in the technology that Fujitsu is offering in terms of understanding again that visibility into your network as attacks continue to occur within the region and the prevalence. It's always good to have a second pair, i.e., within your environment to mitigate any risk of being compromised and then being down for weeks. So in closing, please reach out to your Fujitsu if you want to kind of have one-on-one sessions. If you want to understand the technology a little more, we can always, between ourselves and Fujitsu, to have that one-on-one session with you and your team to understand what your needs are and requirements to build out the service for you guys. Thanks very much. And thank you, Andrew, Brandon, and Adonis for the session.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks all.